welcome to our monthly cybersecurity webinar. I'm Paul Johnson. I'm the program manager of our Cybersecurity for Small Business program. Our presenters today are Marree Reed and Ian Moon, who are program assistants. And our topic today is staying safe on mobile devices. So before we dig into this presentation, I want to mention that this content was created by the Wyoming Small Business Development Center Cybersecurity for Small Business program. The cybersecurity program is fully funded by the U.S. Small Business Administration. And just a plug for the SBDC, visit us at wyomingsbdc.org. We have advisors located throughout the state, and you can select the one nearest you in your county and make an appointment with them for no cost, comprehensive small business advising. And with that, I'm going to throw this over to Marree and Ian to go through the content of today's webinar.
Thank you, Paul. Before we begin, please note that these recommendations we cover today provide a solid foundation, but they're not exhaustive. Every business has unique needs, so I encourage you to conduct additional research and implement these practices in ways that work best for your specific situation. Now let's get started with the essential security controls that should be enabled on all mobile devices used for business. Set up a passcode, PIN, or biometrics like your fingerprint or face unlock, as this provides an extra layer of protection. Use multi-factor authentication whenever possible, and this includes on apps. Screen locking. Set it to lock automatically after 1 to 2 minutes max. Enable lock immediately when you press the power button, and get into the habit of locking your screen immediately when you aren't using your phone. Device encryption. This scrambles your data, so even if someone steals your phone, they can't easily access your files. And good news, most newer phones have this turned on by default. On your iPhone, this is called data protection, and it is activated when you set up a passcode or use Face ID or Touch ID. To check if this is enabled, you just go to Settings, Face ID and Passcode, or Touch ID and Passcode, and look for the Data Protection is Enabled message. You can also turn on advanced data protection on your iCloud account by accessing Settings, selecting your name, select iCloud, and then turn on an advanced data protection. On your Android phone, this is done by going to Settings, Security, Encryption, and this varies by model, but it's usually under Security. If you want in-depth tutorials for your type of phone, a quick search in your preferred browser will quickly get you that information. Now let's talk about what you're putting on these devices. Updating and deleting apps. Make sure to enable automatic updates. And that random game you played in 2019, delete it. Old apps are security holes waiting to happen. And do a monthly app audit. If you haven't used it in about 3 months or so, consider deleting it. And updates aren't just new features, they're often security patches. For App Store security, it's best to stick to official app stores like Google Play or the Apple App Store. And before downloading, do a quick check, like how many downloads and what are the recent reviews saying. And make sure to look for some red flags. Pay attention to apps asking for weird permissions, like why does a flashlight app need access to your contacts? This is also a good reminder to check the permissions on your current apps. Not every app needs full access to your data, like the microphone, camera, photos, or contacts. When in doubt, Google app name security issues. You'll be surprised what you find. For third-party apps. For business apps, check if your industry has recommendations. Free doesn't always mean safe. Sometimes your data is the product being sold. And read those permission requests. If you're just scanning QR codes, the app shouldn't need access to your photos, contacts, and location. Speaking of apps and data, let's address using personal phones for work. While we strongly recommend separate work and personal devices, we understand it's not always practical. If you're using one device for both purposes, here are our recommendations. Create a clear policy and write it down. Even with 3 employees, have a simple one-page agreement regarding using a personal phone for business. Make this part of your onboarding process so employees can sign off on their acknowledgement of this policy. And cover the basics. What apps are allowed or what happens to work data when someone quits. Speaking of data, make sure it is known that your business owns your company data, even if it's on a personal phone. Include steps to take in case the phone is compromised, like locking it down or stolen device protection. Make it clear, personal phone, but business rules apply to business stuff. And remember to implement some or all the recommendations we cover in this webinar, like utilizing a password manager for company logins, requiring multi-factor authentication, encrypting your mobile device, avoiding public Wi-Fi and using a good VPN, and keeping apps and the mobile device up to date. Separating personal and business. Use separate user profiles if possible. Android does support this. And consider using different browsers for personal and for business browsing. Separate email apps or at least separate email accounts. Use separate password managers or a single app with multiple vaults or profiles. And consider creating work-specific folders or spaces on the home screen that house your business-related apps. And when an employee leaves, have a checklist. Revoke account access, reset shared passwords, and remotely remove company data from their device if possible. Make it clear upfront that business data stays with the business. And if you choose to use mobile device management software that separates personal from business data, be upfront. Employees need to know what monitoring is in place. And be mindful that you also need to get their written consent for any monitoring software. And focus on protecting business data, not personal data. Now let's talk about one of the biggest risks when working remotely, where and how you connect. Public Wi-Fi networks are inherently insecure. Data can be intercepted by other users on the same network. Avoid accessing sensitive business information when connecting to public networks. And if you must use public Wi-Fi, ensure you're only visiting HTTPS websites. Look for the lock icon in your browser. Never access banking, customer data, or business accounts on public networks. Some secure alternatives are using the mobile hotspot from your phone, and this uses your cellular data, but it's much safer. And consider using a virtual private network or a VPN, and this costs about $3 to $10 per month per user, and that's way cheaper than a data breach. Bluetooth security. Turn off Bluetooth when you're not using it. Only pair with devices you trust and recognize. If you see random devices trying to connect, something is suspicious. In crowded areas, turn off discoverable mode. Effective cybersecurity isn't about creating barriers to productivity. It's about implementing practical measures that protect your business and maintain your customers' trust. Now I'd like to pass it off to Ian, who will wrap up the remainder of the mobile security topics for today.
Thank you, Marree. So moving on, we're going to be talking about data protection and management. One of the big things that we tend to sort of think about but never really give too much time is having backup policies for our devices, when we should back them up and how we should back them up. It's important to have a time when you should be backing up your data, where it's just during downtime or at the end of the workday, you just spend some time in order to back up all the data on a device to make sure that you have it secure. And it's also important to make sure that that data is being encrypted when it is being backed up. So that way it can be protected and it won't be at risk for being compromised in case of a attack. It's also important to know what data any third-party apps that you're using are collecting and how they store it and how it could be potentially used, because it's important for everyone to know what's being collected and where it might be used, as any amount of data could be used to cause problems or even compromise other systems. For mobile device management, the big question that you have to ask is, does your business require a lot of mobile phones or even just mobile data for tablets or other mobile devices? If you're on the move a lot and need to be going to work sites or other sort of places that aren't just your general business location, it's important to take into account what you need and how best to implement that. It's also, again, reiterating that we want to have a good idea of having phones separate for personal and business, whether that's having two different devices or having software in place to separate them. Because if one gets compromised, it could severely impact the other. And having policies for personal phones in the workplace is also very important. As previously stated, know what the users are know what your employees are using them for, and make sure that you have well-written responses to make sure that they know what the policies are. It's also important that if you do have a separate phone and separate phones for personal and business, it's best to have stipulated that for personal phones, you shouldn't be connected to the business Wi-Fi or business devices, just to help reduce any potential risks in data being compromised or malware being offloaded from your personal device onto business devices. Then, for social engineering, it's best to have a never trust, always verify mentality whenever answering emails, text messages, or any other uh, text message or messaging apps that you may have or use, as phishing attempts can be conducted over email, text message, or pretty much anything that uses any sort of style of messaging. It's also important to make sure that if you do get these messages that say, hey, please install this application, it's probably best not to do that. So always make sure that you're installing applications from trusted sources, check reviews, check to make sure that you're on official sanctioned app stores whenever you're using your mobile devices. So that way you can help greatly reduce the risk of any potential malware or other problems that occur on personal phones. Next, we have physical security. And on portable devices, this means having the ability to wipe the data remotely or having made sure that encryption is enabled. A lot of modern day devices have the ability where you can remotely wipe devices if they are lost or if you fear that they may be compromised, as well as having just standard means to have encryption already on there. It's also important to note that deleting data isn't the end of data for most devices, as the way that most devices tend to delete data is by simply removing the address to the data, but not the actual data itself. So it's important that if you're using mobile devices that you make sure to either reformat the drive in order to make sure that all data is completely destroyed, or in the case of, let's say that you're upgrading laptops and you want to make sure all the data is wiped, make sure that you completely reformat the entire device, or in other cases, like with hard disks, make sure that the actual disk is destroyed so that way it can't get any data back. It's also important to make sure that you have a policy against using USB drives, as USB drives can be an effective strategy for hackers to easily gain access to personal devices or any other device just by simply plugging it in and offloading data into the device to steal anything, and it's instantaneous. There is nothing that you can do. Once the USB device is plugged in, it's done. So it's best to adopt a practice of never using USBs to help reduce the potential risk of just finding a USB, picking it up, plugging it into your computer, only to realize, oh, it was actually a malicious device. And finally, we want to make sure that we are following the standard security practices set by your industries that you're in. So it's important to do research to figure out what the industry standards are specifically for you to make sure that you're following them and that you understand why it is that the industry has these policies and why it is that they're operating like this. It's also important to know that the laws that are surrounding data, as we're continuing to get more and more laws about data protection, what data we can and can't collect, and how best to disclose when we are collecting that data and what we are using that data for. And with that, I will go ahead and pass it back off to Paul to close us out here.
Yeah, I just wanted to do a quick pitch for our Cybersecurity for Small Business program, which we still have funding for another year. And that basically consists of no-cost confidential one-on-one advising with you to take a comprehensive look at your business. We also offer monthly webinars, and we can talk about some customized solutions. Before we close out here with the summary, I just wanted to throw in a couple of mobile device scams that some people on our team have been noticing. In fact, I just had one right before this webinar started. I had a message yesterday from I can't remember what the name of the financial group was, but they wanted to talk to me about my $40,000 personal loan that I was requesting to take out from them. Well, we did not request a $40,000 personal loan. And then I got a follow-up text that said, hey, call me so we can talk about the details of this transaction. I don't know what kind of craziness would happen if I called them, but I'm sure the first thing they'd want was my social security number. So that's a scam that's going around. We've also seen payment scams happening where you'll get a text that says a $439 payment was made on your account. Click here to check on the transaction. And of course, you don't want to click on that link. There's also been some social engineering sort of scams going around where you get a random message where somebody will say, hey, can you give me a call? I need to check on something. Or I have an update for you on that question. And these are generally from phone numbers that are, we've seen a lot of them coming from overseas area codes and nation prefixes. So that's a little bit of a different scam that's been on the rise lately that we've been noticing. So those are just a few things to look for that we've been seeing lately, in addition to all of the data protection stuff that Ian and Marree talked about. There's a lot of text message phishing going on and some social engineering phishing going on as well. So be aware of that stuff happening. Marree, you want to do a little wrap up for us here?
Yeah, just a little wrap up here of what we covered today. I know we had a lot of topics to cover, but they all are very important. And like I said, just make sure to implement some or all of the advice that we gave to you today. And if you do have any questions, please reach out to Paul. And this is his email address.
Yeah, please reach out if you have any cybersecurity needs, or if we can help you with advising or with fixing a particular problem. Don't hesitate to reach out to me or your SBDC advisor, and we will find a solution for you or help you out with whatever you need. I will say thank you to Ian and Marree and Tyler working in the background here. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks.